Chapter 784, Reappearance of the Vampires. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. It was because of the Saint Soul territory that even a saint body at the pinnacle of the Fish Dragon Realm's 9th change couldn't compete with a first-level half-saint. It wasn't just the gap between the Fish Dragon Realm and the half-saint realm. The Saint Soul territory also had an absolute restrictive effect. It was the same when two half-saints fought. If they were in different levels, the Saint Soul territory would completely restrict the one in the lower level. At this moment, Zhang Yuochen had to bear 1,000 times normal gravity. That was not all. The Saint Soul territory also affected his hearing, vision, spiritual power. It was as if he'd sunk into quicksand. His limbs couldn't move freely. Even breathing had become difficult. Half-Saint Xuanlong's body popped and cracked. He inflated rapidly and returned to his original height. "Junior," he said coldly, "you actually forced me to use my Saint Soul territory. You are quite skilled." Zhang Yuochen still seemed composed. "Really? Then do you believe that I defeated Shaolin with my own abilities?" "You can ask that after you win against me," Half-Saint Xuanlong said. Zhang Yuochen straightened the hair at his fingertips again. "It seems that I can only prove myself by defeating you today." Half-Saint Xuanlong laughed loudly. "You've already entered my Saint Soul territory and you still dream about defeating me. Being under gravity that's 1,000 times heavier must not feel good, right?" Zhang Yuochen stared at Half-Saint Xuanlong as if he was an idiot. "Don't you know that the laxanas of some unique physiques can absolutely counter a half-saint's Saint Soul territory? Regular saint bodies could only save themselves with the laxana when fighting with a first-level half-saint. However, some more powerful physiques could actually fight back against a Saint Soul territory with their laxanas." 5 elements laxana. Zhang Yuochen activated the laxana. At once, 5 types of power rushed out in all directions, transforming into a patch of colorless clouds. The incomplete 5 elements laxana was much stronger than a first-level half-saint's Saint Soul territory. It was still a bit weaker than a second-level half-saint's, but the pressure on Zhang Yuochen lightened quite a bit. Demolish. Zhang Yuochen activated his attack. He pushed all his sword intent into the hair at his fingertip. A strong gust of sword chi flooded out of the hair. The powerful sword chi clashed with Half-Saint Xuanlong's Saint Soul territory. It tore through and reached towards Half-Saint Xuanlong's heart. Good. Half-Saint Xuanlong raised his blue-green scent sword again. Grasping its hilt, he lifted it over his head, sword chi trailing behind it. Then he brought it down. This moment would determine the victor and loser. Just as the blue-green sword was about to hack Zhang Yuochen's neck, Zhang Yuochen sank down quickly. Then he pushed off from his right leg and rushed to the left. He poured all his holy chi into the hair and cut down on Half-Saint Xuanlong's back. Puff! Squelch! 2 sounds arose at the same time. One of the sword chi rays from the blue-green sword landed on Zhang Yuochen's right leg. It left behind a 2-inch deep wound. Blood gushed out of it like a fountain. Zhang Yuochen's right leg had been so close to being cut off entirely. On the other hand, the hair had left a bloody line on Half-Saint Xuanlong's back and flew out from his chest. With a thud, Half-Saint Xuanlong fell to the ground. His body had been halved at his chest. The sound of him falling shocked many of the people present. It hadn't been this shocking even when Lin Yue had used the Void Sword to kill Shaolin. How could a half-saint be this weak? Or was Lin Yue really this horrifying? A strand of hair slayed a half-saint. I must be dreaming. All the young monks were dazed. They couldn't accept this. Looking at Half-Saint Xuanlong in the puddle of blood, Saint Xuanyi of the Four Symbols sect shook with anger. Pointing at Zhang Yuochen, he gritted out, "Lin Yue, Half-Saint Xuanlong only wanted to have a friendly fight with you. How could you do something so extreme? I think you're just a bloodthirsty demon." Zhang Yuochen didn't feel like replying. Enduring the huge pain from his right leg, he trained his eyes on the 2 halves of Half-Saint Xuanlong's corpse. His expression was heavy. Seeing that Zhang Yuochen didn't even glance at him, Saint Xuanyi's eyes turned cold. "You first killed Shaolin and then slayed Half-Saint Xuanlong. You are purposefully killing people." The Sword Technique Conference's decree is to exchange sword techniques. not to train murderous devils. The Yin and Yang sect must hand over the criminal. The monks of the Yin and Yang sect were all snickering. Senior brother apprentice Lin Yue used a strand of hair to kill a second-level half-saint of the Four Symbols sect. How can you blame him? It's half-saint Xuanlong's fault for being so weak. In my opinion, half-saint Xuanlong died because of himself. What kind of person is senior brother apprentice Lin Yue? He's not someone you can slander casually. Zhang Yuochen ignored the arguing between the young monks of both sects. He continued to stare at half-saint Xuanlong's corpse and put his guard up. The blood quickly flowed back into the two halves. Then blinding blood-red light enveloped half-saint Xuanlong's body and Shaolin's body as well. There were smacking sounds, like some creature was drinking fresh blood. The next moment, a strange winged creature flew out of the bloody light. There were fangs in its mouth and its eyes were blood red. Its body and appearance had changed greatly, but one could make out similarities between its aura and half-saint Xuanlong. Everyone was stunned by this scene. Even the monks of the Four Symbols sect widened their eyes. This was incredible. Didn't half-saint Xuanlong die? How come he came back to life, and he's become this strange creature? Guys, look! Shaolin's corpse has turned into a mummy. Can it be that half-saint Xuanlong is an immortal vampire and he sucked Shaolin's blood? Indeed, Shaolin's corpse had dried up. All that remained was his skeleton and a layer of brown skin. He was like a dried corpse of someone that had died centuries ago. Half-saint Xuanlong must be an immortal vampire. Otherwise, he wouldn't still be alive after being cut in half. He sucked Shaolin's fresh blood and healed himself. Half-saint Xuanlong picked up the rose-finch sword and charged at Zhang Yuochen. Die! He yelled in a hoarse, raspy voice. Then he brought the rose-finch sword down at Zhang Yuochen. Zhang Yuochen was already grasping the void sword. He was about to meet the enemy halfway. Monster, you won't dare! A deafening roar sounded at that time. The Moonbriar Sword Saint was instantly in front of Zhang Yuochen. Without moving, a gust of potent sword chi burst from his body and sent half-saint Xuanlong flying backwards. Poof! The countless beams of sword chi hit half-saint Xuanlong, leaving behind dozens of bloody holes. His body practically turned into a dice. If the Moonbriar Sword Saint didn't want to leave him alive, half-saint Xuanlong would have no chance of surviving. The Moonbriar Sword Saint walked over. Appearing beside half-saint Xuanlong, he unleashed his powerful saintly might on the vampire. Speak! He said coldly. Why did you want to kill Lin Yue? Who sent you to disturb the sword technique conference? Half-saint Xuanlong's entire body was covered in blood, but he still laughed loudly. Ha ha, all of you will die, die. Countless thin bloody fissures opened up on his body abruptly. He inflated quickly. Powerful holy chi escaped from every fissure. He was like a leather ball that was about to burst. The Moonbriar Sword Saint's eyes narrowed. He could obviously see that half-saint Xuanlong wanted to explode his body in a suicide attack. Overconfident, the Moonbriar Sword Saint released his Saint Soul territory and pressed half-saint Xuanlong back instead. He turned half-saint Xuanlong into a cloud of bloody mist before he could attack. All that remained was the bloody cloud and the acrid smell. Other than that, not even a bone from half-saint Xuanlong was left. Everything that had happened had been full of twists and turns. Who would have thought that half-saint Xuanlong of the Four Symbols sect was a vampire? The immortal vampire race was the public enemy of humanity. Everyone would try to kill them. At that moment, everyone turned towards Saint Xuanyi of the Four Symbols sect. Some more radical swordsmen had already summoned their saint swords. They were ready to take care of this monk. The Moonbriar Sword Saint's eyes were sharp. Xuanyi, he said coldly. You actually brought a vampire to the Yin and Yang sect. What is your goal? Does the Four Symbols sect want to destroy the Sword Technique Conference or something else? Saint Kuxin of the 8 Trigram sect scoffed. Perhaps the Four Symbols sect has a special relationship with the immortal vampire race. Otherwise, how could a vampire half-saint just pop up out of nowhere? Saint Xuanyi huffed. Saint Kuxin, That's slander. The Four Symbols sect is clean and innocent. How can we be connected to the immortal vampire race? You should know that they can control the blood within them and change their bodies to seem completely human. Even a saint has difficulty seeing through their disguise. The vampires used this method in the battle 800 years ago to infiltrate the top forces of Kunlun's field. They killed countless saints and half-saints. Many of the saints of the 8 Trigram sect and Yin and Yang sect must have been killed too, correct? I am curious how Lin Yue, a mere fish dragon 8th change monk, could tell that half-Saint Xuanlong is a vampire. It was undeniable that Saint Xuanyi was speaking the truth. The vampire's disguises were indeed very sophisticated. After all, none of the saints present had seen through half-Saint Xuanlong's cover. Thus, it wasn't hard for half-Saint Xuanlong to fool the saints of the Four Symbols sect. Everyone looked back at Zhang Ruochen, suspicion in their eyes.